America's toxic masculinity crisis was on full display today when Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, or as he likes to say, Secretary of War, stood up in front of a room full of generals, admirals, and other senior military brass and lectured them about what it meant to be a real man. Now, of course, Hegseth is clean shaven and has a bunch of white nationalist tattoos, so he knows whereof he speaks. But here's the thing, we have gotten to a point where being a man, being a real man, has been completely redefined by people like Hegseth and Donald. So there was a time when being a mature adult man meant being able to admit when you were wrong, being able to apologize, being able to course correct when the initial strategy that you settled on proved not to be working. Well, no longer. Being a real man in America now means never admitting when you're wrong and continuing to be wrong. In fact, doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on your wrongness. Being a real man in America means never course correcting. Why? Well, because course correcting means having to admit you were wrong. So we keep going down the most misguided, dangerous paths, all to protect the fragile egos of the person who set us down that path in the first place. What else does it mean to be a real man in Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth's America? Well, it means not caring about the feelings of other human beings, not believing that empathy is something we should value, believing things like kindness is weakness, believing, in fact, that the only feelings that matter are theirs. Remember in the 2016 election, a bunch of Donald's supporters and followers wore T-shirts that said, fuck your feelings? Well, guess what? It turns out that while they do not care about our feelings, they have a lot of their own. And Donald, in particular, doesn't like it when his feelings get hurt. He doesn't like it when people don't go out of their way, indeed bend over backwards to make sure that his feelings are assuaged and protected and valued. So being a real man in America is caring not at all about other people while demanding that they care about you. Being so obsessed with looking tough and acting tough and sounding tough that you completely fail to realize how weak and pathetic you are and seem. And that to me was one of the most glaring things about Hegseth's remarks today, which we will get to. He actually believed that the people in that audience admired him and thought that he was the ideal of a strong man, when the opposite is the case. But of course, when you belong to a party that thinks that Donald Trump is the ideal of masculinity, well, you've completely lost your way. And unfortunately for us, they're bringing us down with them. Let's dive in. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is great to have you here. As we know, Republicans and Democrats have been unable to reach a funding deal, so a government shutdown is almost likely certain to start at midnight tonight. The New York Times reports that a large sticking point is that Republicans want to extend the current funding levels until late November. Meanwhile, Democrats insist on more than $1 trillion in funding to preserve Obamacare subsidies. They warn that millions could lose coverage if those subsidies expire. Democrats also want to reverse health care cuts included in Donald's big abominable bill. Republicans, of course, are telling a very different story, and it is, of course, nonsense. They are saying that Democrats are fighting to provide health care for undocumented immigrants, which is a lie. Now, the number of dollars Donald claims Democrats want to steal from the American people in order to provide health care for undocumented immigrants continues to grow, but that still doesn't make it true. He pushed this lie this afternoon at an Oval Office press conference. Take a look.
Because, I don't know, we'll probably have a shutdown because one of the things they want to do is they want to give incredible Medicare, the Cadillac Medicare, to illegal immigrants. And what that does is it keeps them coming into our country, and like they do in California. And no country can afford that. No country. They are shutting it down. We're not shutting it down. We don't want it to shut down because we have the greatest period of time ever. I told you, we have $17 trillion being invested. So the last person that wants it shut down is us. Now, with that being said, we can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. And you all know Russell Vought. He's become very popular recently because he can trim the budget to a level that you couldn't do any other way. So they're taking a risk by having a shutdown because of the shutdown, we can do things medically and other ways, including benefits. We can cut large numbers of people out. We don't want to do that, but we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse. And, we're cutting that.
You following? You got all of that? Let's be very, very systematic here. The Republicans control the executive branch and both houses of Congress. How in the world are Democrats responsible for shutting down the government they don't control? Here's the thing. The reason that Republicans are failing in their mission to get any support from the Democratic side to help them pass this bill, because remember, they need 7 Democrats to side with them, is because they are trying to ram through a funding bill that contains no compromise whatsoever, including the refusal to allow the Obamacare subsidies to continue. The Republicans, in other words, want Democrats to support a bill that would take away health care from millions of Americans. Why on earth would any Democrat vote for such a thing? And how is it their fault that the Republicans refuse to compromise? So instead, this fiction is being spun that it's because Democrats want to give hard-earned American taxpayer dollars to undocumented workers, and they want to make sure that there is, and this is a quote from Donald, trans for everybody, whatever that means. It is all nonsense. It is all lie, and it is all to convince those who are willing to be convinced that this is not the Republicans' fault. This is not Donald's fault. It's all those terrible Democrats, those evil, radical left Democrats. So what is a man and a party to do? Well, if the Democrats won't essentially give in, cave, which, to be fair, the Republicans have every right to expect them to do because that's what they typically do, then Donald and the fascist Republicans are just going to have to punish the rest of us. They have promised to fire hundreds, if not thousands, of civil servants. We just heard it. I mean, it was sort of incomprehensible, but I'm pretty sure what Donald was saying there is that Democrats don't agree to keep the government open under terms that are absolutely unacceptable to them. Then Donald is just going to have to cancel essential programs because the Democrats like them. Well, guess what? Whether or not Democrats like those programs is absolutely irrelevant. What matters here is that those programs provide essential services to Americans, including people who voted for Donald and the Republicans. That's where we are. The only way The only way we get through this is for Democrats to stand strong. And as I've been saying for a very long time now, shut it all down and let them do their worst, because quite frankly, it cannot be as bad as what they're doing with the government open. As I alluded to earlier this morning, Donald and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth held a very bizarre and, quite frankly, frightening event. Hegseth ordered all of our nation's top military leaders to convene. Over 800 generals and admirals from stations around the world had to show up at a Marine base in Quantico, Virginia, in order to hear two rambling, unhinged speeches, which were rambling, unhinged, and incoherent in their own very special ways. We dissected Donald and Hegseth's speeches in an earlier video, which I urge you to check out. Just dropped about an hour ago. So just to sum up, though, Hegseth and Donald's goal seems to be to purge military leaders who aren't 100% loyal to Donald. Now, that's terrifying for many reasons. But to be clear, there was no loyalty oath demanded. It was more strongly implied that if you disagree with them, if you are not sufficiently loyal to them, then you should just resign, because that's reasonable. Donald even said at the very beginning that they could behave however they wanted. They could applaud, they could laugh, and, you know, if you didn't like what you were saying, you could leave. But then, of course, you would lose your rank and your career, and he would fire you. People in the audience laughed, which I don't quite understand, because he wasn't kidding. In the moments when Donald and Hegseth weren't pushing their fascist agenda, they were pathetic and rambling. Donald seemed to be attempting I think it was attempting to be funny. It's hard to tell with him. But there was one thing that nobody could prevent him from doing. He bombed. It was not as disastrous as his UN speech. It wasn't as humiliating as his UN speech. Hegseth was. But Donald learned a lesson the hard way. A room full of military leaders will not be as quick to go along with you, to make you feel better about yourself, or to laugh with you, as the sycophants he has filled his cabinet with. Take a look at Donald trying, testing the waters, and then crashing and burning.
I'm very careful, you know, when I walk downstairs, like I'm on stairs, like these stairs, I walk very slowly. Nobody has to set a record. Just try not to fall, because it doesn't work out well. A few of our presidents have fallen, and it became a part of their legacy. We don't want that. You walk nice and easy. You don't have to set any record. Be cool. Be cool when you walk down, but don't bop down the stairs. So one thing with Obama, I had zero respect for him as a president, but he would bop down those stairs. I've never said, da-da-da-da-da-da, bop, bop, bop. He'd go down the stairs, wouldn't hold on. I said, it's great. I don't want to do it. I guess I could do it. But eventually, bad things are going to happen, and it only takes once. But he did a lousy job as president.
Well, I mean, the bad thing has already happened. He's back in the Oval Office. That is why we spent millions of dollars in taxpayer money to convene all of the top military brass so they could listen to that drivel. Because even if he was trying to be funny, what in the world was the purpose of that aside? Hegseth had his own special tirades. One managed to be at once angry, hateful, boring, and off topic. Take a look.
This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit.
Ooh, what a tough guy. Wow. Yeah, that'll show him. I think the most disturbing thing about that, besides, of course, the fact that he's the Secretary of Defense, War, is that he actually thinks that he comes across as being a strong, admired leader, when nothing could be further from the truth. The New York Times reported on the unprecedented nature of this gathering. In an article, the Times said, quote, military specialists questioned the cost and disruption to daily operations caused by the meeting, as well as the security risks of concentrating so many top military commanders in one place. All, it appeared, for Hegseth to be able to lecture military leaders with decades of combat experience on an enhanced warrior ethos in a forum that was televised live, unquote. Well, that's what this was about. It was about the photo op. It was about having Donald and Hegseth have their moments of seeming like they were the real men in the room, that they knew better than anybody else what that even means. Unfortunately for us, they are both as far from being role models as we could possibly imagine. I don't know how many of the men and women in that audience took it in. I don't know how they processed an inexperienced, woefully unqualified, corrupt, and deluded man who doesn't understand the military, despite the fact that he actually served in it. And I'm talking about Hegseth here, obviously not Donald, because Donald never served a day in his life. A man who doesn't understand the rules of engagement and has nothing but disdain for them, who thinks that the only way to be strong or to win is with an overwhelming show of force, rules be damned. To sit in that room listening to this, despite your years and decades of experience, despite the hard work you put in to get to the rank you currently hold, and realize that that man has the authority to order you to sit in that room, waste your time, demean you, demean the troops you oversee, that he's your boss, and worse, that his boss is Donald. Yeah, I think that would be a bit much. Donald and the Trump regime are not known for ceremonious firings. For instance, former FBI Director James Comey found out about his firing from seeing it on the news. Others have found out that they were fired from their post on Twitter. Yes, firing people via tweet. That was a thing during the first Trump administration. Now, sources say a number of FBI agents are set to be fired in a very disrespectful way. A mass midnight email. Here's CBS News with more.
There are big changes in staffing coming to the FBI by the start of tomorrow. Sources tell CBS News that hundreds of FBI employees will be separated from the Bureau at midnight. Nearly 24 other FBI agents have recently been fired, all while federal agents are being reassigned and allocated to task forces to help with President Trump's crackdown on crime.
There are going to be hundreds of fewer FBI employees tomorrow, dozens fewer agents. There's part of this fork in the road offer that was made by the Elon Musk Doge Group earlier this year. It looks like hundreds of FBI employees took the fork that means no longer working for the federal government, and their last day on the job, those who are still on the job, is today. That's in addition, Tom, to nearly 24 firings of FBI agents in recent weeks. According to CBS News' reporting, some of those firings were agents who were seen kneeling in 2020 while responding to unrest in Washington, D.C. after George Floyd's murder. 5 years later, the Kash Patel-led FBI moved against those employees, and there's been others inside the Department of Justice prosecutors' offices who've also been recently fired or forced out for their role in prosecuting January 6 cases. All of this adds up to a purge inside the law enforcement agency that protects Americans against terror attacks, child pornographers, and gun runners. And it raises the question, how will they use the resources that remain to protect everyone everywhere?
Well, simple. They don't have no interest in protecting everyone everywhere. The goal here is to purge law enforcement of anybody who is not completely loyal to Donald and the agenda of the Trump regime and the fascist Republican Party. Fired 5 years later for taking a knee during a protest. Well, that's what happens when the person in charge is a thin-skinned bully who has a good memory when it comes to one thing: remembering his slights, remembering people who did things he didn't like, remembering people who stood up against him. Donald never forgets a grudge. And that is where we are. The entire government of the United States of America, with agencies led by people like Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and Robert Kennedy and Linda McMahon and Tulsi Gabbard, is in service to helping Donald get revenge. And it's only Tuesday. All right. Well, we've come to that time when I realize that I haven't been breathing. So now we're going to breathe in and out. We've also reached today's emotional support moment, thankfully. Today, our ESM takes us to the Solomon Islands, where late last year, a deep sea expedition uncovered a hidden giant. What first seemed like a shipwreck revealed itself as the world's largest coral colony. Billions of tiny polyps living as one, quietly growing for centuries beneath the Pacific. This thing is so vast, it can be seen from space. So let's watch this report from CTV News.
This vibrant underwater garden dwarfs the scientists who found it. Bigger than a blue whale, the standalone coral is the world's largest and can be seen from space. The unique rock-looking animal pulsates with marine life and color, just off the Solomon Islands.
There are probably 1 billion polyps in that coral that has been growing for centuries. So the fact that it's just not a reef, but a single colony of coral is absolutely astonishing.
Astonishing because it's healthy and thriving at a time when many of the world's coral reefs are bleached under marine heat waves.
About 3/4 of coral reef areas in the world have been affected.
But within the grim reality, this extraordinary discovery, though rare,
I have never seen something like that,
is a sign of hope.
What it really does is point to the fact that there are wonders left in the world for us to find.
And with this colossal find, if scientists could understand how the mega coral survived for hundreds of years, it could unlock the answers to help other vulnerable corals in the world. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. And I hope it does help them figure out how to save our other endangered coral reefs. But yes, whenever I see footage like that, I just really wish that I could scuba dive. That's still on my list of things that I'm going to do someday. Okay, it is time to get your comments, questions, etc. Elvira, we have a new member. Thank you so much. It is wonderful to have you here. Steve, thank you very much for that, Steve. Comment, today was another costly distraction from the Epstein files. Yes, but as with so many of the other distractions, it was dangerous in its own right. Very, very bad. We are on a very bad road here. And today was just another glaring instance of that. But yes, release the Epstein files. What are you hiding, Donald? Can't be that bad, could it? Mida Cheryl, thank you so much as always for gifting one Mary Trump Media membership. And here it is, the Mida Cheryl twofer. Thank you again. Comment, terrible Tuesday fee. Can we lock them up now? No? Soon. Well, maybe not soon, but someday. I have a few things to get through first. Catherine, member for 3 months. Awesome. Comment, grim response from Army makes kitties happy fee. Yeah, totally. That was, I really, I saw a picture, but I really wanted the reverse shot. I wanted a camera on the audience. I have to see if there's video out there because that I think would be telling. Catherine, so much. Thank Catherine so much. Let me rephrase. Catherine, thank you so much. Rhonda is also a new member. Thank you for that. And welcome. Catherine again, thank you very much. Comment, grim response from Skinny General's Fee. Yeah, I mean, we didn't play this clip, but in one clip, like Hexeth is saying that, how disgusted he is when he sees fat soldiers and fat admirals and generals walking around. Like, seriously? Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's a way to go about it. Also, have you ever seen that guy do a pull-up? You shouldn't be criticizing anybody for anything. Also, I would rather have a general or an admiral or a soldier or an officer of any kind who, has a couple extra pounds than a Secretary of Defense who's drunk all the time and sharing highly sensitive classified information on a public chat. But what do I know? I'm not the Secretary of War. Marianne, thank you so much for being a super sticker, and thank you for that. Erin, comment, he's such an idiot. Lies, lies, lies. Not entirely sure who you're talking about there. It could be several people, but I'm going to go with Donald. Occam's razor, Regina, thank you very much as always. Comment, Donald is still trying to undo all Obama's successes. Yeah, like climbing stairs. What? Seriously, I know it's not the most important thing, but what is that? And how could anybody listen to him talk about how he carefully walks downstairs? Obama's a terrible president, but he bopped out and not and think that that's okay, or that he's sane, or that he should be in charge of anything. I think that's one of the things that drives me crazier than anything else, that anybody is okay with this. Oh, well. Greg, comment, they're going to cut those programs anyway. Dems need to stand up. Exactly. Democrats have been given no assurances of anything. And we've been here before. They had an opportunity in March to shut the government down. Schumer made the gross miscalculation that it would be better if we helped them keep the government open. Look what has happened since then. We would all be much better off if the government had been closed for the last 7 months. Gilbert, comment, Mary, yes, shut it all the fuck down. Exactly, Gilbert. Like, I'm not sure what other evidence we need that that's the way to go. For always, forever, for life, thank you very much for this question. Why isn't Donald being charged with treason? Well, because he and his corrupt fascist party are in charge of everything, and because the corrupt illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court has put him above the law. Aaron, wow, okay. Gifted 20 Mary Trump Media memberships. That is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much. Wow. Extremely generous of you. Mary, Thank you very much. Comment, happy last day of September fee. That blows my mind. It is going to be October tomorrow. How did that happen? Vicky, comment, he's so stupid. Yes, he is. Again, you could be referring to several people, but the fact I know who you're talking about is an indication of just how apocalyptically stupid he is. Lizzie Beth, question, how much did that meeting cost? Oh, God, tens of millions of dollars. Plus, of course, it put our national security at risk by taking military leaders off of their posts for no reason. Kimberly, thank you very much. Comment, Donald committed treason, sedition, and espionage. Say, aren't all three of those capital crimes? We need to hold him accountable for fuck's sake. Yeah, they are. Well, sedition may not be. I'm not sure. But yes, treason and espionage certainly are. Mimi, comment, his jealousy of Obama was showing. Yeah, no kidding. The reason Obama could bop down the stairs, in Donald's words, is because he was fit and athletic. Yeah, everything Obama did drives him up a wall. Pam is a new member. Thank you so much, Pam, and welcome. Champagne Hand, Canada's in the house. Elbows up, guys. Thank you for that. Comment, so it was more of a loyalty oath. In a manner of speaking, yes. Margie, thank you so much for gifting 5 Ameritrump Media memberships. It's very kind of you. Mary, thank you as always. Comment, rubbing temples again, and 3 cat emojis. Yeah. I literally cannot imagine having had to sit through that whole thing in person. I don't think I would have been able to do it silently. Joe, thank you so much as always. Comment, just because fee. Thank you and team for all you do and speak. Well, thank you, Joe. And we are happy to be here doing it. Karen is a super sticker. Thank you so much, Karen. Lady Di, NV, gifted 5 Ameritrump Media memberships. That's so awesome of you. Thanks. Nanner, thank you as always, gifted 5 Ameritrump Media memberships. That is most excellent. Susan is a super sticker. Thank you so much, Susan. Kate, thank you very, very much. Question, Mary, in your clinical opinion, how fast this has declined? How long before there aren't enough handlers to cover it up? You know, I'm not around him, so I can't say. Like there's been so much wrong with him for so long, and you know, these things don't unfold in the same time frame, so it's very difficult to say. But I mean, clearly, all is not well. I confess, I'm a little surprised that things haven't deteriorated more rapidly. But then again, we also don't know what mitigating factors there are, you know, medically or just in terms of how he's protected and managed. Emily, a comment, it boggles my mind that anyone takes Donald seriously. He's so childish and insane. Yeah, I know. I don't get it. I don't get it. Michelle, another Canadian in the house. Elbows up. Comment. Go Blue Jays. Oh, sorry. Go Blue Jays, go Fee. Okay. The Mets lost, so I'm kind of out of it at the moment, but okay. Blue Jays. Go Blue Jays. Thanks for all that you do, Mary. Your uncle is nuts. You're welcome. And yes, he is. Linda, comment, Dr. Oz is a fraud. Yeah, the fact that miscreant was standing behind Donald, nodding along while Donald was lying about Democrats wanting to give trillions of dollars to undocumented workers for health care. Because he knows better, and he's vile. In the middle of nowhere, thank you so much as always. Gifted 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Fabulous. Susan, thank you for being a super sticker, and thank you for that. Terry, thank you very much. Comment, I blame the spineless Republicans for all of this. Yeah, a lot of blame to go around, but absolutely they are at the top of the list because they could have stopped this years ago, and they chose not to. Susan, thank you as always. Comment, he failed to say anything about the fat commander-in-chief. So weird. Or Donald's ability to do the whatever the test is that Hegseth was going on and on about. I must have slipped his mind. In the middle of nowhere, a super sticker, and thank you again, as always. And I must hydrate. Excuse me. Susan, thank you so much as always. Comment, thank you to Mary and your phenomenal Mary Trump Media team. It was a hellacious onslaught of a news day. You covered it all. Appreciate you all. Well, thank you, Susan. And yes, because I have the best team. And they always covered all, no matter what the onslaughts. And it is quite impressive. Lynn, thank you so much for that. Comment, the delay in swearing in of Arizona's new Democratic Congresswoman is to keep her from voting to release the Epstein files. Yes, it is. And so too might be the impending government shutdown. Because that's what is a priority for Republicans. Jen Hovind, thank you very, very much. Comment, you do more for democracy than Jeffries. Here's his money he texted me for an hour ago. Shut it down, done playing, change our leaders. Well, thank you. That's very kind. Call me Little Sunshine. Thank you so much. Comment, all of us have to suffer just so one criminal can stay out of prison. Yeah. Yes, that's kind of where we are. Mark, thank you very much, Mark. Comment, America is Christendom. Church is greater than government. Well, for a lot of people, for far too many people, that is indeed the case. And it's not good. It is not a healthy place for us to be. Gil, thank you very, very much. Comment, it's impossible to bop downstairs if you have bone spurs. There's your proof. Or if you're old and extremely out of shape and very, very sedentary. Just saying. Wanda, super sticker. Thank you so much, Wanda. That's very generous of you. Susan is a new member. Awesome. And welcome. BN, also super sticker. And thank you so very much. That's great. Patty, thank you very much, Patty. Question, how about the magical med beds? I don't even know what that was about. I don't know. But apparently somebody mentioned them and he thought they were real and he thought it would make him look cool to post about it. I'm the foggiest idea, but clearly he wasn't being monitored closely enough that day. And finally, Kimberly, thank you, Kimberly. Comment, call them the Trump Epstein files. Well, let's go with Donald Epstein files. I prefer that. So yeah, let's do that. The Donald Epstein files. I like it. All right, everybody, that does it for us on what has been quite an insane day, news cycle wise and news wise. Thank you to everybody watching on YouTube, to everybody streaming on Twitter and over at our Substack, The Good in Us, to everybody listening to the podcast. Also, to all of our new members, people gifting memberships, our super stickers, and everybody just giving us donations. We truly, truly, truly appreciate it so much. Of course, to our most excellent moderators who do this just because they care. That means a lot. If you want to support us and you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. We're trying to get to 500,000 subscribers. Also, we have videos dropping every day. I mentioned earlier, we have a video just about what happened in Quantico, Donald's and Hegseth's speeches and a breakdown of all of it. You can check that out. A really easy way to support us is to watch those videos, like them, share them, and comment on them. And just keep showing up. Keep showing up. We are here Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern for Mary Trump Live. We have Ask Mary Anything Within Reason on Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern. And as I mentioned, every day, twice a day, 7 days a week, we have videos dropping. So keep checking those out. All right, that does it for us. I will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Also, I would be remiss if I did not thank my extraordinary, awesome team at the end of this very crazy day. Yet another one. And it just keeps happening. So we're just going to, buckle up and deal with it. But seriously, thanks, guys. And I will be back tomorrow night. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind. Bye.